What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's get a little spicy. Now, I thought that I could do a spicy corner before my review for episode 10, but as I was preparing to do one, I realized that I had way more saved in my phone. So I decided to make this a standalone video. So let's get into it. Right, y'all. So first up, let's talk about Erika Jane and Teddy. I forgot that they actually have like a podcast together. Every time I hear Teddy with somebody else, I just automatically assume that like that's somebody substituting in for Tamra because she's not there. Not realizing that she also has a podcast with Erica. Well, they were talking about Real Housewives of Orange County, and it was interesting to see the discourse brought on by this one clip that was posted by Hello Drama. So let me read it for you guys. It says Erika Jane calls out RHOC's house husbands for being too involved in the show. This is a woman's show. Let them carry their own weight, have their own fights, and do their own thing. So let me play the clip for you guys.
Let them husband giving. I mean, this is what I don't like. I don't like it when the husbands, and I realize that, I see Katie's husband giving interviews and shit like that, like, oh God, Slade, all these men, Ryan, too involved. Too involved. This is a woman's show. Let them carry their own weight. Let them have their own fights. Let them do their own thing. Texting me 911. Like, is that even a thing? Like, do we have a pager? Like, what is this? 911. If you call me 911, you better be dead.
But the amount of times those two men talked,
Right. Like, it was. They want the orange. They want the hold the orange.
at this point they may as well take one because
And they should just, you might as well. They're doing a
Share
better
it.
job than, Sometimes the husbands/boyfriends do better jobs than the women. And it's clear that Slade and Katie's husband, Matt.
yeah, and I don't find it. I find it shocking that we haven't seen a conversation between Jen and Ryan talking about how Gretchen told them these things, because I don't think Ryan would lie. I think Ryan would have been like, well, they did tell us.
Maybe, see, now you're turning out to like Ryan.
No,
Okay. Look at this.
No.
So here's the thing. I get what Erica is saying. Like, Housewives is a woman's sport. Okay. I don't really want to see the husbands in the mix too much, but I don't mind Slade and Ryan being in the mix of this situation only because it seems like that conversation that led up to all of this drama happened when the couples went on a triple date where you had Gretchen and Slade, Matt and Katie, Ryan and Jen. And that conversation about what happened at Naked Wasted happened that night they went out at Mastro's. So they heard the conversation as well. So I don't have a problem with them adding in their 2 cents. But that doesn't take away that I believe that Slade and Matt are thirsty, because when they showed the call log, or when Matt showed his phone's call log and he was talking to Slade just as much as he was talking to his wife, I was like, what are y'all talking about other than this show? Y'all met like 3 days ago. Like, what's going on here? And it does give like they want to be involved doing interviews solo. And it's like, this is your wife's fight. Let Katie fight her own battles. Let Gretchen fight her own battles. But I'm not too bothered by the two of them being in the mix since they were there during that conversation. I also feel that Teddy did pose a good question where she was like, why haven't we heard from Ryan? And that is true. He's like the missing link. We've heard from everybody else that night. We've heard from Gretchen, Katie, Jen, Matt, and Slade, but we have yet to hear from Ryan. And I wonder if he decided that he wanted no parts of this situation because he just got out of the whole situation with Show Iotani and the gambling. But it is interesting that we haven't heard his point of view in this situation, and he was also at that dinner. I wonder if we will get his point of view as the season goes on, or if it will never happen. Because I was actually surprised, and we're going to talk about it. Jim was on Watch What Happens Live, and nobody asked Ryan like his thoughts. So there's that, because I think he was there. I feel like I saw him in one of them clips. So continuing on, let's get into Kiki Monique and Carlos King. So Carlos King was generous enough to give Kiki Monique a platform to further explain her part of the story. So this was posted by, I think, Bravo Snarkside, and it says this: Kiki Monique details lunch where Katie Janela brought up the Gretchen Roofie story and how months later, Katie asked two journalists if they had any knowledge. So let me play that clip for you guys.
Talk to somebody, because what happened in January, you said you spoken to a fellow journalist about it. So what happened where you felt the need to talk about it to somebody months later?
Yeah, I had no interest in doing anything with that information. But when January was announced, and it was announced that Gretchen was coming to the Real Housewives of Orange County, that is where I did get concerned, because now I had a piece of information, which, I'm sorry, if these allegations are true, that's illegal. And that is, I don't know. One, I want to get to the bottom of if there's any truth to this story, because like, if so, this like needs to be exposed. And two, like, we had just come off of that really dark RHOC season with Bryn and all of that. And I truthfully was like, if they were talking about this, because I couldn't think of any other reason they were talking about this at this dinner in October, unless they were thinking that this might be a storyline in the upcoming
I talked to somebody
season. And I said, this is just not something that I think the viewers have the appetite for as a stomach line when we just came up off that RHOC season. So I feel like I need to like either find out if the story is true or not, and like just like put an end to it. And if it's not true, like we can just like, you know, dead it. Or if there is truth to the story, like we need to find out, because this is actually like, it's illegal or it's defamatory, one or the other.
And when you felt this way, you had a conversation with another journalist. What was that conversation like?
And this is where it gets muddy. And this is why, again, like when you see things repeated on different platforms as it goes, the game of telephone is really terrible. But I spoke to one journalist initially. I said, can you help me? Because again, I'm independent. They're legacy media. They have more resources and access than I do. I don't want this attached to me. And I also don't want to season. And I saw the story coming to light. I just want to find out if we can find out if there's any truth to the story. That reporter, despite what was out there, never repeated my name, never said, even it was a he or she who found this information, and was able, I felt comfortably came back to me that the story was not true. And so I was like, that's fine. I'm comfortable with the story not being true. And I don't really know what to do with it from here, other than hope it doesn't come out in the next season. Speaking to the other journalist, it's hard to get into, because as you know, building relationships in this industry requires very intimate, off-the-record conversations about a lot of different things. And the conversation with the second journalist really was centered around that. We were having a very sort of open, back and forth discussion about a lot of different things that, again, I won't get into because it would expose the story coming to. But there was a reason why Katie's name came up in that conversation. I can say part of it was him trying to understand my thoughts on her and, you know, trusting her and that sort of thing. And I said, look, and I said, I really do like her. You know, we've had a great rapport. There was this one thing, so I wasn't sure, but I'm comfortable the story isn't true. So, you know, I've moved on from it, but I will say, like, that was like a weird story. I expected that conversation to never leave that bubble of, again, off the record. And unfortunately, that conversation was taken back to Tamra.
How did you find out that conversation was taken back to Tamra?
When Katie texted me at the end of February, I was literally on the tarmac. My flight was about to take off. I'm flying to New York for 2 weeks. I get a text from Katie that says, are you around to film today at 5? And I just did a question mark. And then she wrote, your name was brought up on camera. And I did an exclamation point. And I said, who and what? And she said, you know, Tamra. It was about Tamra. And I said, what was it about? And she said, I don't know. And I said, I'm literally in the air for the next 5 hours. And she was like, oh, shoot. Well, you know, let me know when you can. I had no interest in filming. I had no interest in being part of this. I'm panicking. But of course, I'm in the air because I know I've told, even though she said she didn't know what it was about, at that point, I know that it had to be something regarding this because I just told this other person. So I texted, he admitted he had told Tamra. So I'm freaking out, like, why'd you do this? And blah, blah, blah. And I go to New York. I have to get work done. I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to go to New York and just do whatever. I'm in New York. I don't hear from Katie again. So I'm thinking, okay. And then.
So again, I think it was great that Carlos King was generous enough to give his platform to Kiki Monique to say her piece. I know a lot of people didn't like that because I saw it on Instagram as well as on Twitter, but I think it is only fair that she gets to say her piece when a lot of people have been in her comments, in her DMs, and even on the blogs and on Twitter calling that lady everything but a child of God and actively praying on her downfall. I've seen people say they hope that she fails. So I think it's only fair that she is allowed to clear her name or say her part of the story even further. Two, I'm glad that Carlos King asked really good questions. If you want to see the interview in its entirety, it's still up on his YouTube channel. And the main question that, I play for you guys is the one that I've seen a lot, which is, well, why did she go to the bloggers? Why didn't she just go to Gretchen? Granted, I think she probably should have went to Gretchen, and she probably was being messy talking to her friend, but let's not act like when you get information from somebody, you don't start talking to the people around you about it. And Katie and Kiki are not friends. Like, this is a journalist or a blogger and a housewife. There's no friendship here, okay? So when she basically says, like, hey, I talked to a friend because you're telling me something that is illegal. This girl is about to come up on this show. I went to this person because they have more resources than me, because I am a independent person doing this by myself with my own business. This person tells her, yeah, girl, that information isn't true, and she lets it go. Then she's having a casual conversation with another colleague, and that person decides to take the information from that conversation and tell Tamra. I feel like if everyone has so much venom and vitriol for Kiki, why don't you guys have the same energy for Gretchen and Katie? Like, if we're going to go from like how this story all began, Gretchen is point A, Katie is point B, and Kiki is point C. You can't get to C without A and B. Gretchen told Katie, then Katie told Kiki. So if Gretchen and Katie weren't running their mouths, we wouldn't have Kiki. So if you're going to give Kiki this much smoke and so much hatred, you should be giving Katie and Gretchen the same thing. Like, that's the part that I'm just like, y'all got all this smoke for this black lady right here, but you don't have none for Katie or Gretchen. And she wouldn't have known the story if Gretchen didn't tell Katie and if Katie didn't run her mouth to her. Also, this clip shows that Katie was being dishonest, because Kiki is saying that, no, she hit me up in February saying that my name was being brought up on camera, and then asked me like, hey, are you available at 5 p.m. on this day to film? And I told her, girl, I got work. I'm on my way to New York. And if y'all remember, episode 3 or 4 is when Heather and Gina and Katie sat down at that like coffee shop, and Heather told Katie that, look, Tamra told me that you met up with Kiki Monique and you were planting stories, or trying to get her to plant stories about us, like very harmful stories. And that's when Katie was like, I never did that. No, no, no. And it's like, so you were having conversations with her. Then we get to New Orleans and you're like, I never said that. And I don't know why she would say that about me. But then when the women are like, you can contact her, and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that. You had already contacted her. Honestly, if I was Kiki, I would drop every receipt I have on Katie, because what you're not going to do is paint me out to be a liar and say that, like, and have my credibility shot and have all these people harassing me in my comments and in my DMs because you don't want to take accountability for the way that you move on this show. Because I do believe that Katie did tell Kiki. And that's why Katie was acting weird, because why are you texting Kiki? Well, Tamra said that you said something. It has something to do with Tamra. Okay, so why would Tamra bring my name up? Which means you know what's going down, girl. You know what's going down. So since we're talking about Katie, let's get into this. So shouts out to Gibson John. He posted this tweet and I actually really agree. So Katie was on US Weekly doing an interview, and she was asked, like, what do you think about some of your castmates saying that, they don't want to come back if you return, or they don't want you back? And this was her response. She says, a lot of people are saying if Katie comes back, I won't. So maybe we should also just read the comments and see who they want back. So then Gibson John co-tweeted this, and this was a graphic made by Reality Rundown. And it says this: maybe we should all just read the comments. One of the biggest mistakes you can do as a real housewife is adhering to the comment section. Hashtag RHOC. And then he gives credit to Reality Rundown. And I agree with what he's saying. Once we start seeing housewives adhere to what the comments are saying or what the fans are saying, is when they lose the plot and things start to go downhill for them. And I think Katie, unfortunately, has really bought into the hype of herself this season, that I don't even think she sees the slight shift that is happening with the way that the fans are supporting her. Because she posted this video on TikTok after she saw so many people saying how the recent episode 10 of Real Housewives of Orange County, was boring. And I was actually surprised by some of the comments I saw on Twitter when this video was being shopped around. So let me play it for you guys.
This is shocking news. Shocking. I'm shocked. This is shocking news. Shocking. I'm shocked.
So like I said, I was surprised by the comments when it came to this video, because honestly, anytime one of the blog pages on Twitter or on Instagram posts something about Katie, majority, if not all, the comments are fairly positive towards her. But someone posted this video on Twitter, and I went to check, the replies and the quote tweets to see, what people are talking about. And I actually saw a shift, like where the comments weren't 100% on her side. It was actually like 70%, and the other like 30% were like really critiquing her, but like in a kind way. Like some people are like, yeah, I like Katie, but this is a bit much. Or someone saying like, yeah, I like her, but let's not act like she's such a dynamic housewife. She's actually quite boring. And I'm like, see, Katie doesn't even notice this shift because she's too caught up in how everybody's feeling about her now. But I genuinely believe if she does not deliver at the reunion, she doesn't bite back the way that a lot of fans are hoping. I've seen people say, oh, I hope she reads Shannon down and Jenn down and Gretchen. But if she doesn't come with that energy, people are going to be mad at her, because Katie is playing into the expectations of what a lot of fans want her to behave like, with the different TikToks and being very bold and brash in interviews, and being shady on Twitter and things of that nature. It's like, girl, you're playing into it, so people are going to have these expectations that you going to come to that reunion and clear everybody that tried you. And if you don't, that is when you're going to lose majority of the people that were rocking with you. Because to me, Jenn is a cautionary tale for Katie. And instead of like being gleeful that the people are kicking that lady's back in, because they've been kicking Jenn's back in for the past 3 weeks, okay, since that episode where people feel like she switched up on Katie and just threw her to the wayside. But if Katie was smart, she would look at that situation and realize that can happen to her as well. Because Jenn was a fan favorite for 2 years, and now she is actually dealing with what it's like when people don't like you, or a vast majority of people don't like you. And granted, Jenn is not doing herself any favors with the way that she tweets or the way that she is responding to people bringing up how some people feel uncomfortable with the racial implications of what is going on. But seeing her spiral it should to me be a warning to Katie that, girl, I don't need to believe that these people really rock with me, because at any time they could switch up if I do something that they don't like. Because I see not Jenn, but Katie's situation going 3 ways. Either one, she actually delivers at the reunion and keeps the same energy that she has online at that reunion and clears the girls and comes back for season 20 and really gives us herself, or like a made up personality that the fans actually like. Or 2, she does poorly at the reunion, which I don't think she's going to do that great, but she could surprise me. She does poorly at the reunion. Tamara has to help her out, and then people get annoyed by that, but they still let her come back for season 20. But everyone's going to treat her really nicely because they don't want to get slapped with like the racist allegations or being microaggressive or bigoted. And everyone's nice to her and she fades into the background because she is not in an adversarial role with anybody, because everyone is acting like Katie is such this housewife, but to be honest, she's not a good housewife, because you can't even really tell me anything that she said last season other than her bringing up the paparazzi situation that made her memorable. Like, nobody can tell me anything like iconic or very witty that she said that people were like, oh my God, yes, she should come back. But I see that happening, and then people complaining about her being on the show because she isn't that interesting. And then lastly, I don't see them bringing her back. If they don't bring her back, I feel like Katie will turn into the new Monica Garcia and then eventually like fade into the void that is Housewives. But either way, I hope Katie realizes that fan support is nice, but it can be taken away at any moment. So you should just be yourself and not pay attention too much to what the commenters have to say. So since I brought up Jenn, let's get into an update. So the last time I did a spicy corner, I talked about Joe. Joe decided to get on her TikTok and confront Gretchen and Jenn about their comments that they made on the after show. And Jenn actually responded, but she responded like 3 days afterwards in somebody's comments. But shout out to this page called Kimberly Bryant Stan page. They reposted it on Twitter, so we're going to get into it. So before we get into what Jenn said, this is what they said. Jenn, you were doing so good in this apology until you made it all about Tamra again. You're more worried about Tamra having ammo for the reunion instead of actually feeling bad for not following through with Joe. Hashtag RHOC. So let's get into what Jenn had to say. So it starts off like this. Hi, Joe. Girl, you still have my number. I thought the exact same thing about you. I felt like you were so sweet and kind. I absolutely love meeting you, and I have not watched the after show. But if I said who's Joe, to be honest, when you showed up at my filmed engagement party last year, that was the first time I met you. Hence why I said who's Joe. You are correct. Since then, we have had a couple of lovely text exchange. Truly, I don't see the need to make a TikTok so Tamara can go and repost it. You could have easily used the number you have for me, and we could have had a discussion. Now, wanting back on the show and doing whatever you need to do to position yourself is a different story. I can respect that. And if that's your wish, I truly hope it works for you. You have my number. Please call me if you want to chat. That was passive aggressive AF. To be like, now wanting to get back on the show and doing whatever you need to do to position yourself, it's a different story, but I can respect that. Then to go on and say, and if that's your wishes, I truly hope it works for you. Girl, basically saying, girl, I'm on this show. You're trying to get on. Are you trying to make up a beef between us that's not there? But I do understand what the person was saying that was like, girl, the apology was okay until you mentioned Tamara. I do agree. I think Jenn is a little too obsessed with wanting to get back at Tamara. Like, I get it. Tamara did her dirty. So I'm not saying she doesn't have a right to be angry and to be pissed off. But it's like, at what point do you just let that lady be miserable by herself? Like, Joe posting that video, I do not think had anything to do with Tamra. So you mentioning Tamra kind of shows how much you can't stop talking about her and how you're upset that she had this thing on you. But I also think what's getting to Jenn is the fact that everyone is now in the comments, or people are on Twitter saying maybe Tamra had a point about Jenn, maybe Tamra was right about Jenn, and that probably grinds her gears because she's like, no, this lady has been mean and hateful towards me. Nothing she has said about me is right. But yeah, you could have kept that apology if you ask me. So continuing with Jenn, let's talk about her divorce because there has been an update. So this tweet is coming from Hello Drama. They basically condensed an article that was written by US Weekly. And y'all already know, if I can find the article, the link will be in the description box below. But let's get into it. It says Jennifer Pedranti has been awarded sole physical custody of her 3 children, Garrison 15, Everly 13, and Dominic 11. In her divorce from ex-husband William Pedranti, U.S. Weekly reports. The exes had initially agreed joint custody in their 2024 settlement, but a new September the 3rd filing gives Jennifer full-time custody, and while will have visitations only and must give 1 hour notice before visits. Their two older sons, Dawson, 18, and Harrison, 21, are not included in the order. The former couple divorce has been contentious. Jennifer previously secured child and spousal support, plus a $260,811 lump sum and her yoga business. William later sought to end spousal support, citing her cohabitation with fiance Ryan Boagi and accused her of harassment. Jennifer denied the claims, arguing Will failed to pay the lump sum, which forced her to live with Ryan. Jennifer joined the Real Housewives of Orange County in 2023 for season 17. Shortly after, William filed for divorce. Hashtag RHOC, source US Weekly by Ryan, I think it's Newman. So, the reason why I wanted to read this update is because in the mid-season trailer, we actually get a scene of Jenn speaking to her daughter and her daughter being very emotional, talking about she doesn't want, I think she said something to the effect like she doesn't want her mom to get another divorce. And I wonder if they're going to tap upon, her relationship with William. I'm going to be honest, I think William's a bum. The fact that he allowed his 18-year-old son to sign on some student loans, knowing how badly that's going to screw him over if he doesn't pay them back. Like we still over here paying back student loans. And I was fortunate enough to have parents who understood how the loan process worked. So where I didn't take out more than what I needed and I didn't get into a predatory loan. But it's just like the fact that he allowed him to do that is so messed up in my eyes. On top of that, Ryan basically was nicely trying to say that man was a deadbeat. Now, I think Ryan gives scammer teas and snake oil salesman, but the fact that he allowed Jenn and all them kids to move into his house lets me know he has more care for them kids than Will does. On top of that, the fact that the kids are actually excited and we're happy that Jenn and Ryan are getting married lets me know consciously or subconsciously, they know that they daddy ain't no good and did they mama dirty. They know that. Okay. So I'm just like, yeah, Will ain't no good or William isn't any good. But yeah, I just wonder if we're going to get more into their divorce as the season goes on. So next up, Jenn was on Watch What Happens Live and she was asked several questions, but the two clips that I saw that was gaining traction is what I want to talk about. The first one is Andy asked her about Gretchen and about how Gretchen told Jenn that she didn't go to the hospital, but on camera she told Tamara and Shannon she did go to the hospital. So he wanted to know, how did she feel about that situation?
Has your opinion of Gretchen's story changed now when you see her saying on camera that she did go to the hospital?
That was hard for me to watch. Gretchen and I are becoming really close, and I've heard all these stories from Gretchen, but you know what, Andy, she's never told me that. So to hear her say that, don't think I didn't pick up the phone. I'm like, girl, what is going on?
What'd she say?
She said it was really hard. She had a lot coming at her that night. She said she was really tired, and she said she misspoke.
So this clip got Jenn in some hot water, okay? Because some people felt like, well, Gretchen lied. Like, she's been telling you that she didn't go to the hospital, but she told Tamara and Shannon that she did go to the hospital. But in the confessional, she said she didn't go to the hospital. And you're giving her all this grace saying that she misspoke. And you've only known her for a couple of months. But you've known Katie longer and you just threw her away. And here's the thing, I can see both sides. On one side, I do understand what people are saying who are upset and frustrated with Jenn, where it's like, girl, Gretchen lied. Like, a lot of people feel like she lied. And it's like, y'all are upset with Katie for lying, but you can give Gretchen all this grace and you've known her a short amount of time. That's kind of crazy. But then I also can understand the people on the other side where it's like, well, Katie has done all these things multiple times. This is the first time Gretchen may have actually misspoke. She may not be lying, you know? So I see both sides. But honestly, if I'm going to be honest, this Watch What Happens Live really didn't do Jenn any favors, bro. It like any favors. Like there were so many people being like, girl, this was a bunch of word salad and her beating around the bush and not saying what it is. And you can tell when it comes to questions about Tamra, she is very direct, she's very concise, she knows what she wants to say. But when it comes to this Gretchen versus Katie situation, Jenn really doesn't know how to respond to things. And I'm like, girl, you got time before the reunion comes, but you definitely need to start practicing your responses to questions, because if you perform this way at the reunion, girl, they gonna eat you up. Like I already said, they have been kicking Jenn's back in since I think the episode before last. Like, girl, they're not playing with you, so you better come correct, Jenn. So the next question was about Tamra and this apology tour that she is on. So let me play that for you.
Tamra's kind of apology tour, has it been genuine from where you're sitting?
You know, you get kind of exhausted when you're on the receiving end of all the apologies. But this year, Andy, everybody kept speaking to like Tamra being in this low spot and working on herself, you know, going through all this therapy. So you hope, you know, but then she repeats the patterns. So then it doesn't feel genuine.
Reaction to Tamra following Katie on Instagram and kind of seeming to be throwing olive branches her way.
Yeah, not surprised.
So I got what Jenn is saying. Like, to have somebody constantly apologize to you yet still exhibit the same behavior can be exhausting. And then to have like Heather and Gina and Emily constantly telling you, well, she's working on herself, she's going through therapy, she's getting better. It is overwhelming. It is exhausting. Well, Tamra didn't like that response, especially the part about Katie. And my thing about it is like, Tamra, we know you're only cozying up to Katie because you saw the way that the fans were shifting. Like, girl, like I said, you're strategic, you're an evil genius. But she got down in the comments and responded to Jenn. So let's get into that. So she said this: BTW, Jenn, I'm going to therapy to deal with some trauma I've had in my life. It's not so I can be kinder to you when all you do is lie. I apologize if I'm right or wrong, because that's what this show is about: conflict and resolution. Move on, lady, or get off of Vicky's show. So then this person by the name of Anubis and Friends saying, at Tamra Judge, you can be so mean and mouthy, but you are good reality TV. You play the game well. And then Tamra responded by saying, thank you. I don't like to be mean, but mouthy, I'll own that. Girl, you are mean. Tamra, you're actually a bitch. Like, let's not. And I think sometimes Tamra forgets that, yes, this is a reality show, but some of the things that she has done to people goes beyond the reality show. I get it. We do watch these shows to see the women argue and bicker, but then find resolution. But sometimes Tamra takes it too far, and then she just expects everybody to get over it, and that's not normal. So she continues on by saying this: I have always followed Katie at Bravo Andy, and I was the only cast member that would film with her coming up. The cast actually gets mad at me for filming with her. Stop acting like I'm the problem, Jenn, and get a storyline other than talking about me. Why don't you address the book that was written by the bookie, Matt? It's an eye-opener for all of your lies. Recalibrate. And then another person by the name of Lily Coyote, I think is Little Coyote Wild. Okay. She says, at Tamra Judge, why can't you just say something without throwing a jab? And Tamra said, where did I jab? Girl, by bringing up the bookie that's writing a book about this gambling lawsuit and situation. And girl, you always jab. But like I said, Tamra is strategic and an evil genius. Like, she knows how to play to the fans in a way in which it always is beneficial for her. Because putting Vicky in that statement, she knows a lot of people are saying that like they want Vicky back because we're coming up on season 20. And a lot of people are like, you definitely have to give Vicky the OG from the OC. She decided to be friends with Katie because she saw how much the fans really like Katie and how a lot of people are allowing their love or, their support for Katie to overshadow the fact that Tamara is the one that caused the takedown this season. like, girl, she ignited it, but people are going up for her because they like the fact that she's siding with Katie, who is by herself technically. And it's crazy. And she also knows that the people don't like Jenn. So there was really no reason for her to respond to Jenn, but she only did it to further ignite the flames that are in that lady's comments. Again, evil genius, very masterful. But Jenn saw this and decided to respond as well. So this is what Jenn said. Of course, she clapped back. She has a mirror. She should go look into it. I'm not the problem. She said, and we do agree on something. Bring at Vicky Gunvalson back to her show. XOXO. Tits on a stick. Oops, the heavy girl, or I mean Jenn. And to be honest, Tamara didn't have to respond back. Like I said, she's just fanning the flames because she sees how much Jenn is getting beat up, okay? And the last thing we're going to talk about is an update about the dynamics that are shifting in this group and what we probably can be looking forward to for the reunion. So this was posted and it says this: the RHOC dynamics are changing. Tamara cozying up to Katie, Emily unfollowing Gretchen, which is surprising to me. So I wonder if what Gretchen does at the end of the season is the reason why Emily unfollows her. Shannon refollowing Katie. I don't know how true that is because I don't think Shannon ever unfollowed Katie. I think they've always been following each other because I've never seen reports that she did unfollow her. Because that would have been all over the blogs as well. So I think they've always followed each other. Shannon just wasn't engaging with her content. The last thing they say is Katie saying she has no intentions on leaving the show, all in time for the upcoming reunion. So I do think the reunion is going to be interesting. I'm expecting certain things from certain people, but I don't know if we're going to get that. But I'm ready to see the reunion. So there's that. So yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in the comments below, like the video, subscribe, and be on the lookout for my review for episode 10 of season 19 of Real Housewives of Orange County. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.